Alright my friends, welcome back to The Journey. Today we are going to go check out the May Stringer house. I don't know how many of you have seen it in the daytime, but it's a very gorgeous house with a lot of history and a lot of artifacts that you don't typically get to see in ghost videos. So I just wanted to take you along and share some of Brooksville's history with you. Hopefully you guys enjoy, and let's get into it my friends.
This, of course, is the May Stringer house. I like to point up here, this is what it looked like in the 80s. It had been rented for a while, and there were, of course, homeless, and it was really a sorry sight. That's why I like to start there. These were the people that owned it. These were doctors in the area, and we approached them to buy it, and they did not want to sell it. They were going to tear it down and make another medical center. This lady up here, you might have heard about her, Virginia Jackson. She started our historical society and pretty much, is the reason we got it. Nobody said ever no to Virginia Jackson. She kept going back to him and going back to him, and finally he said, okay, you got it. So the first person who bought the house bought the land, is the John May. He came from Alabama with his wife Marina and 2 daughters. He was a carpenter, a tradesman. So he built the first 4 rooms, and that's the parlor and the dining room, and upstairs they'll point that out. Where these doors are, that was the front, that was the porch area. And he only lasted here a few years. He died at 26. And I can imagine what the house would have looked like if he had continued to own it. But he died from consumption. And so she lived here for quite a while. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we go with the pictures of the people. Right. But these 2 chairs, before we go any further, I like to point out they're post-Civil War chairs. This is the man's chair, and this is the lady's chair. Why do you think the lady's chair only has the 1 arm?
Probably for dresses?
Yes, exactly. You should hear some of the other replies, but yes, that's exactly it. That way she can sit sideways, and that's that. This is one of our newest. We get everything and we take everything. We have storerooms and sheds and everything full, so we change constantly. But this was given a few years ago, and it's one of the most beautifully kept thing. It is a church organ. You know how we know that? That's a hard thing to guess. The mirror. Oh. The organist would watch the direct.
My mom played piano in church.
Really? So. Oh, see? Okay.
Keep her eye on me.
Okay, well, it was she could keep, or she or he could keep the eye on the minister and the directions, or choir master, or whoever. Okay. So anyhow, John May, I'll just give you a little bit before we go upstairs. The second owner was Dr. Stringer. He came along in the 1980s and built on, 1980s, not 1980s, 18, and he built on the other 11 rooms. He had his practice here, his office is there. This and the hallway was his waiting room. And he built these doors, the pocket doors. Before I came here, I knew nothing about pocket doors. When I saw these, I thought these were modern. And I understand all old houses had them, that were Victorian type. And so this, of course, afforded his family their privacy. This is a very old 1880, I believe. And, 1880. And anyhow, this is called a petticoat table. If you look down here, usually mirrors are above. Usually it's a little more slanted. And the idea of that is as the lady comes down to entertain in the parlor, she's all dressed, and of course we cannot have a slip showing. So this is a petticoat table. That was an absolute no-no. Okay, now right here, as I said before, was the beginning of your four-room house that John May made. This was a porch, and over here where you're standing was where the first drive-by shooting took place. One of the children that lived here, an 18-year-old, was killed riding a horse. So there was even crime in those days.
Right.
This is the parlor, where of course not only the family but all your guests were entertained. All the fireplaces are slanted, and there's 4 of them to heat each room that he built, John May. This is, to me, the fanciest of them. It was redone in recent years, and the reason it's slanted is because he, being a contractor, knew all about the taxes. Each chimney was taxed. So he, being the smart man that I think he was, he has everything, as I say, slanted so that he had one chimney. Oh, these are, the doctors and the different lawyers, the children of Dr. Stringer. The 2 boys were lawyers. And those are their books. And after that, the war was over. One of the locals, the local hero, Frank Saxon, Saxons are still here. Frank Saxon came along. He had been a prisoner of the war, a hero of the war. He came back and got involved very much in local politics. He became clerk of the court. He ended up to be police commissioner at one point. Well, he met Marina, and they married here one Christmas Eve. They had a little boy now. Unfortunately, we don't know much about the little boy other than he lived 5 days. So that was their first child. A couple of years later, they had Jessie May. Now, this is Jessie May at her wake at 3 years old. In those days, it was very, very popular, I guess because families were split. People had adventured away, and it took days to get back. So pictures and things were very prevalent. But this is Jessie May. Now, she was 3, and she is one of our ghosts. We've had well over 80, I've lost track with this year closing, but we've had well over 80 paranormal people tell us we have 8 or 9 ghosts. And as you know, we have the ghost tours, and usually I go into times and things about that. One other death. After Jessie May was born, Marina died a week later. So he was raising not only this child, but his stepdaughters. But he met, some years later, he met Tallulah Hope. Now, Hope is another name that is still here. And she did not want to live in this house. She said, too much unhappiness. Build me a house. He said, well, if you give me a son, I will build you a house. Well, the house that he built for her is the Saxon house. Now, you know that's been redone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you probably know more about the town than I do.
They do weddings over there.
Yes. Yeah. Thank God another house was salvaged. Well, she had 7
it's a
sons.
beautiful house over there, too.
Is it? I've always wanted to go in there, yes.
Yeah, it definitely, especially now that it's been redone and everything. Wow.
So you don't have to get married to go in, huh?
No.
I'll try to get in. But she had 7 sons, and this is their names. And so Frank Saxon went on into politics, and he's quite in many history books all around, for sure. Okay, now you remember Senator Nelson that came from this town, right? All of these rose-colored things, you'll find them, I shouldn't say that. Furniture pieces are from his home, from his original home.
Oh, nice.
So this I like to show. It's a little out of history, but in a way I guess it is history. This is called the courting candle. And I love it so much that one day one of the gals here bought me one because I just love it. Courting candle was the father would come here and would just delegate how long the young man who was visiting his daughter could stay. So if he liked the young man, he would put the brand new candle. It would burn for quite a time till it came to here, and then it would go out. And the young man knew, okay, time to go. If he didn't like him, he'd find a scruffy little candle somewhere, and that certainly limited the young man. And he knew 2 things: gotta go, and they don't like me. So anyhow, this is a relative of Dr. Stringer's wife. And again, as I say, if you want to look at it, she was very, very handicapped. And this will tell you just, how much she could accomplish, which proves the word can't doesn't exist. She did all these little profiles. And there was something about her writing the Lord's Prayer on something. She would put the brush in her mouth to do it. Yeah.
Is there a restroom I could use?
She was missing a foot, I believe, and some hands, and oh my God. But what a gal, huh? This is the oldest thing in the house. And it really, that and the fireplaces are really the only thing that's original to the house. Now this, of course, is one of the fireplaces I spoke of, and they're all different. I love that effect.
Right.
Again, Senator Nelson's chair. Now this, unfortunately, is not working right now, and it takes a long time to get anybody to come work on it. This is called an Amarola. It's from way back, probably the turn of the century. And this is what play is, and it's all done by hand, not machine, one at a time. And this is the rest that we have. We have a very big collection, which we're very lucky.
Right. That's really cool.
But it really, it has the Sousa's marches that we have and everything here. I just love it. We'll get it next time. John May made these windows, and they go up through the ceiling into the wall above. In those days, of course, no fans. No air conditioning. They loved to entertain, so they could, walk out almost like doorways and be on the porch after their meal. This is a music box, one I'd love to own. Let's see. And it's it had cost $50 in the day, I'm told, which was a lot of money. And that's like, 1900. And this company is still in existence. It actually does DJ stuff now. Yeah, they keep up with the times, don't they?
Right.
But it has a nice tone. Sometimes it will fuss with me. Okay, let's turn you off. Oh, it did. It's obeying, see?
These newspapers are kind of an interesting archive. These are the original papers from the period, and these came from a local printer who found them in his archives. And the oldest one is this one that talks about the murder of Lincoln.
Wow.
And they don't refer to it as the assassination, but the murder. The print was extremely small.
Yeah.
But remember, in a town like Brooksville, most people couldn't read anyway. So the size of the print was irrelevant. People in a town like Brooksville would hire some traveling performers who would come in and read the newspaper. You imagine sitting and setting the type,
You would have to.
one letter at a time, upside down and backwards.
And then to read it, you almost have to have a magnifying
Yes.
glass.
And of course, most of the newspapers came out of the Northeast.
Yeah, see if I can get. Yeah, when it's zoomed in 2 times, you can read it, but when it's 1 time,
No. This was the master bedroom that was added to the house by Dr. Stringer. So this was not the original 4 rooms of the house. This was the expansion. This was around 1880. Very nice facility, with a lot of windows, a lot of ventilation. Of course, the 4-poster bed with a lot of windows, come a lot of insects. Screens were not invented yet, so the only protection you had from insects was crawl into your 4-poster bed, cover it with a fine piece of fabric, and kill everything inside. And if you got them all, you'll have a quiet night. If you didn't, it won't be so quiet.
right? Yeah, it's something you don't really realize till you mention it, though. When you look at the windows, there is no screen on those. So if
No.
they were open, they were open.
Yeah.
Birds and everything were coming in.
And of course, he provided full bathroom facilities for his wife. He's got the chamber pot and the basin and the pitcher and the proverbial window to throw it out. This was an interesting little artifact. It's called a weasel. And this was called a monkey. And as the individual would spin the yarn, they would spin the yarn and wind it on the weasel. And when the weasel was full, the monkey would pop. And that's where the nursery rhyme came from, pop goes the weasel. That's a bathing suit from the turn of the century here. Bathing suits turn of the century were made of wool. The reason they were made of wool, it was the only fabric that they had at that time that had some elasticity to it. Cotton would have been more comfortable, but it had no elasticity. So when it got wet, it would just hang.
Right.
Wool would cling to you, so it looked better. I can't imagine how uncomfortable that would be.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And of course, this hat box was a necessity for a gentleman of the time. It was to store his top hat. Top hats were frequently made of silk, and as such, they tended to attract dust. So, a gentleman going to town certainly wouldn't want to go to town with a dusty top hat. So he kept it in a closed box so that it didn't get dusty. Teletype machine, of course, in its day, if people didn't have telephones and you had to get a communication to them, You went to the telegraph office, you dictated your message, which was typed into the system, and it was sent by wire to the receiving machine and printed out, and then a courier would deliver it. Very expensive, so it wasn't used a lot, but this was still active in the late 60s. This
Right.
machine was still being used. And of course the fireplace,
Some
directly
people
over the
like to
fireplace
think that
below.
computers just came out of nowhere, but all this older technology, you can see where like the base was being built for the actual computer system,
Absolutely,
typewriters
Yes.
and all that.
yes. That was the ballot box from the town of Brooksville. Would have simply been brought out to the front of the courthouse or wherever people were going to vote, and they dropped their ballot in. And they trusted somebody to count them. Now this room, most frequently they find this is inhabited by the spirit of Jessie May, the little girl. And they make contact with her here more frequently than not. A number of the docents have some stories. One of the stories they talk about is that these two dolls were removed by the historian to have them dated. And when they came back, this cradle was dismantled on the floor. And they attributed that to Jessie May being upset because they removed the dolls. The only picture I have, I went around here trouble with putting your pictures on a phone is finding them.
Right.
I took this picture upstairs in the attic. That's the trunk. And when I blow it up, there's a skylight. And there is no
Yeah.
skylight in the attic.
That's crazy. Huh.
And blowing that way up, there's leaves and trees.
I was gonna say, it almost
right
looks
there.
like a landscape picture.
Yeah. And we'll go up there and I'll show you. It's not there. This room likely was Dr. Stringer's way of telling everybody, look at my wealth. Stained glass windows in the doors, fancy woodwork, round cornered walls on a kind of useless room.
Right.
But it tells the world I'm wealthy.
It's like a sitting room to keep an eye on everybody.
Yes. This room is pretty much dedicated to Brooksville. Kind of shows how it evolved.
It's crazy, that tree looks normal here. It looks so like evil now, the way it's twisted around
Yes.
like this. Wow.
Brooksville's got on the map as a place where people went. When the railroad came through, there was a big hotel in Brooksville called the Veranda. It burned down in 1917, and this was their ledger. It was interesting.
Yeah, it's right here on Jefferson
Because
Street.
you found your name downstairs. I had a gentleman here, and he found his name here in this block of names. And of course, one of Brooksville's claim to fame was Elvis Presley's visit to get a hot dog in
I was gonna say,
Brooksville.
you went to Coney.
I was a boy growing up
My
in
parents, like, that was like a 3 times a week we were at Coney Island eating. Like, you're not gonna see him here again.
Well, I was a boy in New York at the time, in New York City, and I knew where Brooksville was because Elvis Presley got a hot dog there. And of course, the place with the most spirits, or at least where they make the most contact, is here.
Yeah, and where his reflection or picture was would have been up here. And there's nothing reflective up here at all, so.
There's trash up there. There's nothing light.
And even if it was like that window had light coming in it, the curtains over there were closed and there's a mannequin. So the only thing
Yeah.
you would, like if it was a reflection of that, it would have been a mannequin up here.
Yes, there's nothing here.
That's crazy.
And of course, I didn't see it. I just stood here and took a picture,
Yeah.
and then didn't see it till I got home. And of course, since the Kindred Spirits did their TV special, this has become a shrine, and they're bringing in alcohol, money, cigarettes. I guess they figure that's what spirits like. Alcohol, money, and cigarettes.
Right?
So far, he hasn't drank any or touched anything.
That's the Civil War wheelchair, by the way. The other one was handmade, but the way you see it, they must have really cared about this person. This is a very comfortable chair, and this looks like from a docking station. These are from a table. We know that. And this is interesting. This is a baby incubator, and it was used into the 40s. Can you imagine? I mean, it was heated by coal. The baby's here with this sharp, hot thing. And if it got too hot or too cold, you would use these as, heat regulators.
And how many of those babies burnt themselves?
I don't know. I wouldn't put my baby in there.
No way.
This, of course, is a sterilizer. Now, this was not only an examining table, it also was an operating table. You've got your spittoon down here. The bellows, because he used to make the, steel braces for polio. That's to the left under there. I don't know why it's all hidden. I'll pull it out later. the doctor's bag. Now this, he was not a barber, he was not a dentist. But as I say, we take everything, so it gives you the flavor of that era. But the barber, you can picture the barber pole with the glass and the red and white. Do you know what the red stands for? Blood. The reason being that a lot of the barbers would take special courses, not all of them, and they'd be able to do things like stitching and what was that they used to take the blood out of you?
Leeching?
Yes, things like that. And that was because, of course, the doctors who spent lots of time and lots of money getting their education wanted to go where the volume of people were. Small towns, which America was made up of, did not have the volume of people that they wanted. So a lot of the small towns really suffered. That's why some of the barbers took over. And here's the straight edge. I remember sitting on the side of a tub and my father using his, and oh boy, that scared the life out of me.
I've shaved since I turned like 16, I think is when I first started having to shave, and I still don't understand how anybody ever used that or a knife or...
I know, or even wanted to.
Or sat in a chair and trusted somebody else to do it. That's
yes.
the one that's like...
Yes, the second one is what...
Maybe it's because that Sweeney Todd movie came out and the story of Sweeney Todd and all that with the barber that was like killing people.
Oh, okay, probably.
But it just...
And
I mean, those had to be pretty sharp to be able to cut that. So,
of course, yeah.
What if he sneezed?
Oh, and the angle, he'd have to keep his head is what I can remember my dad
I mean, you're
doing.
basically trusting someone with one of the most vulnerable parts of your body.
I know. Now, over there, you'll see the different pictures of the local doctors. Notice there are some women. And the old dental stuff, I remember that too. Oh my God. And then of course Tampa was a big cigar place, so a lot of people collected the cigar boxes. And I remember, and I lived in New York, and the cigar boxes were collected even then. Okay, as I say, there's the spittoon. You see those in cowboy movies.
Right.
Never thought I'd be with one. It starts with the dress marine and recent day right up until World War I. This, of course, is West Point. And this is kind of new to us. It's a woman's Eisenhower jacket. It belonged to, from what we gather, a chauffeur of a colonel or something. And here's an air rifle. Oh, well, no, this isn't the air rifle. No, this is a rifle that was used as a mock rifle. It was used to train the young men. These are pictures from World War I. It was an encampment out east here. Below that, you'll see the stars. Did you ever hear about these little placards with the stars? In World War II, I can remember being a little girl, and if you had several people from this family in the service, you may have either several of these, this means one in the service, or you'd have a bigger one with several. This means you lost them. That's the gold star. You've heard of the gold star mothers and such. That means you lost them. This, of course, they beg us during training to make sure we ask the young people if they know what this is. Prisoner of war missing in action, because so many do not, and that's something we can't forget.
Sad.
Can't. I was here when a young man came in some years back, and this was his uncle's, and he had it for a while, and he said he really wanted to share it. Would we take it? But we were delighted, of course, and he told us about this. This was, of course, the Purple Heart. To be in the presence of Purple Heart is very special. But he said that George Washington, to give what he gave to his exemplary people were medals, and the Congressional Congress did not want him to. So he made purple sashes for his people that, needed to be honored. And I thought, aha, he won after all. This is his profile and it's purple.
Right.
This was a field x-ray kit in World War II. This is something else. Oh, I don't know where they plugged it, but they did something. Probably onto one of the tanks or something. Right. This is the Civil War section. That's the doctor's kit. Every time I look at that, my knee starts hurting. And you've got your, to take the bullets out, the tweezers over here. Your canteens, your cannonballs, your, it's the oldest thing we have down here. This is from the Revolutionary War, the only piece we have. That's a powder, powder what? Powder horn? No. Yeah, I guess.
Powder loader for putting the powder in the gun.
Oh, is that it? Okay, thank you. Yeah, we learn so much from, we have like 30 hours, but we learn so much from the people that come in.
They had to put, I think they had to pour the black powder in from one of those and then put the bullet in and then jam it down.
Okay, yeah, you'll see the other thing over here. Here it is, the jammer or whatever.
Yeah.
That's my word. We don't have a lot from World War II, which breaks my heart, but I guess a lot of people are still collecting. This is a German dagger, or whatever you would call that. I don't know all the right words. And the rest is World War I. We've got the canteen, we've got the, just many, many different things. But this is what I like to point out. The soldier was given 2 gas masks, one for the soldier and one for the horse. Because of course, if something happens to the horse, we're in big trouble. It was a Fry's family thing, and she gave it to us, and we encased it. In fact, we didn't powder rifle. We did not want her to leave. We told her she was moving to Alabama. We told her that they had closed the gates in Alabama, and she wasn't allowed in. That we'd heard it on the radio. This is a Hoosier cabinet. Now, I was told, I wondered why these were askew here, but I was told that this morning they saw these things at a place.
Yeah.
I'm not going near it. And this is a bread box. And this is like a do-it-yourself kitchen. This comes out more. This is a flour sifter. That's the word I want. Okay. I don't know why they want to look in the mirror. And this is what I love over here. Is this old? I mean, really. You look at yours nowadays, they're beautiful. And this is a toaster. You put the toast in here, look at this. On each side, then you'd have to come and turn it. And then you'd usually have to scrape for 10 minutes. And of course the pumps. And it's baking day. All right, over here, this was the women of the elementary school wanted to be able to have hot meals for their children. So they had a fundraiser, and they bought this at Sears for $22 in 1929. And this was, of course, to either heat or cool, depending. And it was, of course, wood that they used. This is an old Maytag. Now, everybody who has a Maytag thinks they have the best in the world. This was working when we got it in '72, but isn't it ugly? Who would have this in her house? This is interesting. This is a, oh God, what would you call it? A hand-generated washing machine. Now, not everybody had electricity in those days, and it wasn't always reliable. So you'd be in the middle of a wash possibly, and it would give out. So you would finish washing it like that, put it through here, and then put it out on the line. No dryers. Over here, we've got some great things here.
It is so
The irons. Now, we have one iron for everything, don't we? This is a lace iron. These irons are called twin irons. You'd have one that you'd be using, and the other one would go on either the fireplace or the stove to be heated. This is, I can't even lift this up. This is commercial. This is a coal iron, as is this. These are now probably doorstops. But this came much later. This is an ironer. We take everything, as I say. And so they would iron their sheets and pillowcases. This is from 1800. This is a washing machine, believe it or not. Of course, it was for little things. And this is the inside that would agitate. And then again, the ringer. This is something new that we got. Oh, it's metal as well. Okay. I've never seen inside. And that in the corner is a favorite of mine. This. The women would use this, particularly in the summer. They'd heat this stone up at the fireplace or stove. Below is the same thing. They'd put their evening meal in here. They'd have hot water, your vegetables, your potatoes, or whatever. Close it up, put it outside, and this way the house did not get heated, and it was ready by supper time. I think this is ingenious as well. This was a milk box. We had milk delivered, and usually the cream was about this big, and my brother and I would fight over who gets it next.
All right, my friends, I just want to give a huge shout out to Miss Barbara and Mr. John, as well as the other ladies that helped us out today. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing the May Stringer house in the daytime and learning a little more of the history side of things. And that's going to do it for us today. Until the next time, much love, my friends.